Welcome to KRWG Public Media 2024 election coverage featuring New Mexico Senate District 36. Hello, I'm Anthony Moreno. KRWG Public Media and the League of Women Voters are pleased to present this forum. The rules for this forum are candidates have up to 60 seconds to answer each question and should not mention their opponents in their answer. My co-moderator for this forum is Julie Wojtko with the League of Women Voters of Southern New Mexico. We now welcome both candidates, Democratic incumbent candidate Jeff Steinborn and Republican candidate David Tofsted. We now start with the questions. The first question is for the incumbent candidate, Jeff Steinborn. Why are you running for this seat?
Yeah, it's good to be with you. Thank you, as always, for hosting these forums. I think these are really incredibly important moments for the citizens to hear about us and be able to scrutinize us and make an informed decision in the election. So I really appreciate it. You know, for me, public policy has been a passion for many, many years, and there's a lot of great things going on in New Mexico, and there's also a lot of challenges in the state. And I am really locked in and working on many, many projects that I'd like to continue to help New Mexico move forward. And so that's why I'm running again, to continue to work on these issues.
All right, candidate Tofsted, same question. Why are you running?
I'm kind of a newcomer, but not really. I came to Las Cruces, or the area, in 1980 as a military officer out of White Sands. I stayed until '84, and then I took a job with the Army Research Laboratory till 2017. 2018, I ran against Nathan Small in District 36 to the House, and so I just feel like there are things in this state that could really be improved. The education system, we're 51st in the nation. We really have to improve that. COVID hit and we went down, everybody else went down. If we had stayed in the same place, other states would have dropped below us in terms of rankings. So the key is we need to have a better operation of the state.
Okay, we're moving on to our next question.
Thank you. Candidate Tofsted, if elected, what are your highest priorities?
Well, like I said, my highest priority is probably education, but also the energy policies that are going on in this state. We have what I see as a bent towards moving into this green energy. It's going to cost us. Green energy is erratic, let's call it that. It's intermittent. It really doesn't work very well, but we're going to go to 80% energy in the solar and wind. The ruling the bill that they passed, this Energy Transition Act, reduces us to only 20% nuclear or any other form of energy beyond solar and wind and other renewables. I just don't think that's realistic, and at the same time they're saying we have to double the energy capacity. Okay.
Senator Steinborn?
Yes.
If elected, what are your highest priorities?
My top priorities are continuing to work on our water resources, and I think we're living in a time of drought, but we're heading in a time with fewer water resources. Decades from now, we may have 25% less water than we have now. So we're working on some legislation to protect our freshwater resources, moving towards conservation. Other priorities, infrastructure, continuing to give resources to support public safety, growing new economies and diversified economies. Infrastructure here in our district is a big deal. Our Senate District 36 goes all the way to Sierra County, and so we have a lot of flood control, roads, just basic infrastructure, better lighting, sidewalks. And so that continues to be a priority to improve the quality of life in these communities we represent.
Okay, we're going to move on to the next question. This is for the incumbent candidate. What state laws, if any, do you believe should be passed regarding firearm safety?
I think New Mexico, over the last several years, has actually been has done a good job putting a legal regime in place to protect people from, harmful effects of firearms. Obviously, people have a right to bear arms, and that's sacred. So, putting that aside for a moment, we have universal background checks in the state of New Mexico. We have red flag laws that if someone is a danger, that they can hopefully make sure that they're not able to harm someone with a weapon. We know that abusers with a weapon are far more likely to commit violence, and so red flag laws become important then. And so we also now have a 7-day waiting period to buy one. So I think New Mexico is in a good place with firearms, and it's just about enforcing our laws and supporting other public safety mechanisms.
Well, my concern is with this red flag law because when it was passed, the legislature really, I believe, made a couple of mistakes. First of all, you look at the Fourth Amendment. The Fourth Amendment protects your right to property. And the Sixth Amendment says that you cannot take your property unless you have a trial and where you are able to confront your witnesses, where you have a defense attorney. The red flag law that they have in place right now does not allow the defendant whose guns they're talking about taking away to have an attorney, to even know that he's being essentially tried and they're going to seize his weapons. So the property rights in the Constitution are inviolate, and it effectively takes out the Second Amendment. So we need to fix that law. There may be a way to get around it, but we really need to fix it.
Okay, we'll move on to the next question.
Candidate Tofsted, starting with you, what can state lawmakers do to address violent crime and property crime in New Mexico?
Good question. Violent crime, we got rid of the police qualified immunity. We need to bring that back because at this point the police are afraid of actually acting. We have police departments that have fewer officers than they need to have. When you have patrols that in the city of Cruces, you have maybe 150 officers, but some of those are used in office duties, monitoring duties, and then they have 3 shifts a day, which means you have 30 officers trying to monitor an area of many almost 100 miles of property. And we need to worry about that so that our officers are better capable of acting when they see something.
Senator Steinborn,
Yes.
same question.
Yes, public safety is a hugely important issue to all of us. Here in the state of New Mexico, one thing the legislature has done, which has been extremely beneficial to Las Cruces, Doña Ana County, our communities around the state, is we've funded, I want to say, well over $100 million for grants to local law enforcement agencies to recruit, hire officers, put money into technology. Here in Las Cruces, we have stood up a real-time crime center, a real-time crime monitoring system, which the legislature also helped fund. But that's only part of the system. We can't lock our way into dealing with mental illness, dealing with substance abuse, dealing with the underlying factors that maybe lead someone to crime. Those are also very important, and we are absolutely working on increasing health resources. Personally, I passed a bill to ban or to make New Mexico the first state in the country to eliminate copays from mental health visits and from mental health medicine, increasing providers, increasing substance abuse treatment, something else I've really fought for that we still have to keep fighting for. These resources will be incredibly important.
Okay, that is our time. We're going to move on to the next question for the incumbent, and it is something that you brought up. What do you feel the state legislature can do to improve mental health services?
Yeah, so again, we passed the first law in the country, myself and Senator Dr. Martin Hickey, eliminating copays from mental health doctor visits so that we could reduce that financial barrier so people could get help and not have that financial impediment. But that's only part of it. We have a real provider crisis in our state where we're competing with other states to have mental health providers and other kinds of providers. We see, during COVID, an increase in children with, that need behavioral health help. So we really need to be aggressive with recruiting providers, and that's something I want to work on this session as well. And so having a healthy provider base, but then also having a system people can access are 2 really important pieces, obviously, of standing up a behavioral health system that people are taking advantage of.
Candidate Tofsted?
Well, we know that in this state, in this town, basically, if there's a lot of the homelessness issue is related to mental health and also drug abuse. And so we have to find a way to, instead of just turning these people back onto the street, there should be a mental health clinic here in Las Cruces where we can put people after they've gone through the court system instead of just turning them back onto the street. That's number one. Number two is we really need tort reform in this state, and we need to look at malpractice reform, because the reason why that we're running out of doctors is because doctors can't operate here. I had a sister-in-law who was up in Santa Fe, and she had to leave. She left and moved to France just because she couldn't get, because of the malpractice insurance.
Thank you.
Next question, candidate Tofsted, if elected, how do you plan on addressing substance abuse in New Mexico?
Okay, well, substance abuse is an issue. I don't know that I have a specific plan for dealing with it. Of course, we've got cannabis now, and it is legal. And so as I've been going around the community, I get that whiff at a number of doors. And so is that an abuse situation? I don't know. But I really don't know, except for maybe the fentanyl that's coming across the border. We need to seal this border so that we can limit the amount of fentanyl in our communities, because $3 for a pill, it's just so cheap that people are stealing things. Like at our church, they cut the copper wires off of our air conditioner just so they could sell it for a few bucks and get high. This kind of thing is happening all over our community, and we need to stop it.
Same question.
Yeah, so I have been working to increase resources funding for substance abuse statewide for a number of years now. New Mexico has some of the highest rates in the country of alcoholism, certain opioid abuse, and it's kind of sometimes regional, exacerbated more in different parts of the state, but we really need to, and a shortage of resources for substance abuse treatment. So I have been trying to increase funding in a variety of ways, from attaching, amendments to the cannabis regulation law. I tried to do it again this last session, put an amendment on the floor when we reformed that law to capture a percentage for substance abuse. The other thing I've done, though, because I have been disappointed to hear, frankly, from the top of our government, the executive branch, that we really don't know where we would put more money and how to do it. So I got funded several years ago a plan, money for to create a statewide substance abuse plan to actually evaluate where the needs are and how much it would cost to stand up more resources. I wanted to have a number for this session, and then I found out that the plan was kind of a bust, and they're having to start over.
Right.
So the work continues.
That's our time. We're going to move on to the next question, and we'll stay with the incumbent candidate, Steinborn. What's your plan to address affordable housing in New Mexico?
We don't, like every place, we don't begin to have enough affordable housing units. It's a long-term issue. But the state of New Mexico, we have funded literally hundreds of millions of dollars for affordable housing in the last few years, which has been incredible. We passed a constitutional amendment capturing a portion of our permanent fund to go into the housing trust fund. So we've really increased our state funding. But clearly, we need to continue to always find new partners, new ways to build more units. We need to just build thousands more units all across the state of New Mexico, and that's the bottom line. And we're putting in the money, but we need to continue to monitor our housing authorities and make sure that we're, making it easy enough to build these units and also getting the job done. That's the bottom line.
Candidate Tofsted.
Well, of course, the first thing you need is land to put these units into, and you also need to look at who are you going to be housing. Are you going to be housing the homeless, or who are you having in there? Are they drug abusers? So we need to first deal with the drug abuse problem before we say, here's a unit, we'll just put you in there, but you may have a pregnant mother next to people who are using, next to another group that are maybe actually dealing drugs, you have to look at who you've got in these units, who you're putting into the units, but you do want to have the units and you need land to do that. And of course, that implies that you need to have some places that are close to shopping areas and other amenities. So it's not in the hinterlands, you need to find that, but we're kind of running out of land in downtown Las Cruces, let's put it that way. So we need to look at areas such as Rincon or other areas.
Thank you very much.
Candidate Tofsted, what actions do you feel state lawmakers can take to address climate change?
Well, I think they're already doing that in many ways. There's different kinds of climate change. I'm most worried about the water situation in the state. And so there have been proposals, and some people don't believe in it, but I think that we need to look at cloud seeding programs, because we need to look at how we can get more water. Often we see cloud patterns that seem to almost provide enough rain, possibility of rain, and then then no rain actually comes out of them. And we need to look at these areas so that we can get further rainfall. We also need to look at the San Juan Chama aqueduct. Right now it's only about 120,000 acre feet per year coming down there, but the capacity is 200,000 acre feet. So we need to look at getting our share of that water.
Thank you. Senator Steinborn?
Climate change is caused by burning carbon emissions and destroying our atmosphere, and the International Climate Committee has said we need to reduce our carbon emissions significantly within a few short years from now. As someone who believes in science and somebody who believes that when 99% of the scientists give you a piece of information, as a policymaker, you need to act on that. We need to act on that. I think we are in the state. We have a transition act that's moving our utilities to renewable. Right now, believe it or not, New Mexico is one of the leading states in the country using renewable energy. Over 50% of our energy is used by renewable energy. This is a really good thing, moving to electrification of the transportation sector, which is a big percentage. So we need to reduce our carbon emissions for the future of the planet. This has an effect on everything from drought, agriculture, water, sustainability, migrations of populations. So economic development. So we need to aggressively deal with reducing our carbon emissions and moving towards renewable energy, and we're doing so as a state.
All right, thank you very much. We're moving on to the next question for the incumbent candidate Steinborn. What reforms would you support to improve New Mexico's educational ranking?
There again, that's an area where a few years ago, I think we were in serious trouble. The teaching profession was over 1,000 teachers short. We were shedding teachers. Morale was bad. We're seeing an improvement now because we have put lots of money into raising teacher salaries significantly. We have put a lot of money into teacher readiness, preparation, teacher recruitment. So we're on the right track. We've increased our funding of health benefits for teachers. So we're investing in the teaching profession. We're investing in vocational teaching, vocational programs for students. We've never spent more money than we are right now on job training for students who may not graduate. So I think it's a lot of issues there, supporting strong, good, modern schools, but obviously the teaching profession, investing in students, after-school programs. A new success that we've seen started in Las Cruces is a concept called a community school, where the school becomes the hub not just for teaching, but for helping with food and other services that the community may need.
That is our time.
Yeah.
Could you repeat the question?
Sure. What reforms would you support to improve New Mexico's educational ranking?
Well, really what we need is a constitutional amendment that takes out of the hands of the government, and obviously this government, in New Mexico, when I started looking at it back in 2018 when I first ran, a lot of the schools in this area were running 30% proficiency in English and 20% in math. Now, just recently I looked at Mayfield High, they're 6% proficient in math. Oregon Mountain High is 8% proficient. So we've gone to less than half the proficiency that we had even 6 years ago. Much of that is due to COVID, but we need to recover where we were And apparently the public school system is a failure. It is really not working. We need to look at private schools, and that requires a constitutional amendment.
Thank you.
Candidate Tofsted, if elected, what steps would you take to address healthcare challenges in New Mexico?
Well, the first thing we need to do is get our doctors back. And a lot of those doctors have left the state because the tort system is skewed towards the trial lawyers, and the malpractice system is also skewed towards the trial lawyers. The state government has basically taken the side of the trial lawyers and increased. First, in 2021, they jacked up the maximum penalty to something like, I think it was like $2 million or $6 million, and then they decided to roll it back in 2023 to where it was before, but they left it the same place, the increased place, for the hospitals. So now the hospital is under a lot more pressure from trial lawyers, and what are we getting from that? It just seems like we're not really thriving.
Yeah, you know, improving healthcare in the state, we kind of talked a little bit about it earlier. We do need to support our providers and make sure we have a robust provider base. We have done important things to do that. We've increased loan forgiveness for doctors. We've increased reimbursement rates for Medicaid, which is a huge percentage of their patient mix. But it's, you know, clearly not enough. You know, we've done things to help with substance abuse. So, you know, there's some of the work I want to do this coming term, if reelected, is continue to work on new legislation to help incentivize more providers be located in our region, continue to support community health clinics, and you know, and also make sure that our hospitals, I had legislation this last session to make sure hospitals are actually accepting all the insurance that people have, which is a situation that we're finding in rural areas. Finally, the other bill that I'd like to sponsor, will sponsor this coming session, is a bill to allow counties to use their health fund to cover more people so that we can get more people covered with health insurance to have access to health care.
Okay, we're moving on to our next question for the incumbent candidate. How can the legislature address water issues in an increasingly arid state?
Yeah, so number one, we've got to protect our freshwater resources. And in oil and gas operations where they're using billions of gallons of water, sometimes fresh water, we need to move away from that. We need to require the use of what they call produced water, which is water that's already been contaminated through oil and gas, and create a completely closed loop and protect billions of gallons of fresh water. So that's number one. Number two, we need to characterize, we have saltwater aquifers in the state, big water supplies that have not yet been characterized as far as their salinity, let alone how to use them, how to appropriate the water rights. So that is something that we have invested a little bit of money into, but we need to really continue moving forward to characterize these water supplies so that we're understanding and we have that available. But clearly, you know, we need to move towards more water conservation. I mean, if we move into a world with 25% less water decades from now, we better figure out how to do what we're doing now with less water. And that's a reality. It's not going to be about creating new water. It's also going to be about efficiency.
Okay, that's our time. Candidate Tofsted.
Well, one thing that we can do to get more water into the state is we can look at the aquifers themselves and where we're using the water. We are using a lot of water in the mountains because we have the snowfall that comes in, but then what's happening is we have about at least 4 times as many trees up in the mountains as we had before. Now what that does is it makes sure every tree is drier, and therefore you have those trees sucking up more of the water in the snowfall, so that less of it ends up in the aquifers in the valleys in the spring. So the melt off is less. We need to relook what we've done to our timber industry, which has been destroyed in the past, and fix that for one, and then look at other water sources.
All right, we're now moving on to our final question.
Candidate Tofsted, what is your plan to improve public transportation?
Well, I really don't have a plan for improving public transportation as such. I mean, we have a bus system that practically nobody is using. You find maybe 1 or 2 riders on it. Now, that means that the availability of public transportation is there, but it's not being used because people prefer to drive their own vehicles, because you have a rural population, or you have people who need to go to distant sites within the county. I had to drive 35 miles per day one way to get to White Sands every day, 5 days a week. So we need to look at making it easier for people who have cars, trucks, SUVs to get around, and that does not include electric vehicles. I'm sorry.
Well, obviously, I think electrification is incredibly important. You know, when people are paying $3 a gallon, obviously, if they can save money, and bringing down the cost of that technology is a way to not only save people money, but also help with our climate. So, a crucial, potential benefits of that. But in terms of public transit, it's really important to our district. We represent a district that goes all the way to Sierra County. It's not just about working people who are working in White Sands. You have low-income people who don't have access to health care, live in a small community, need to get to Hatch or need to get to Las Cruces for groceries, for a doctor's appointment. So when we created our rural transit system, that was a huge step forward in our county. Recently, they just announced that they're going to be connecting our bus system that goes from our district, the northern part of the county, into Truth or Consequences. That's a good thing. And yes, people are using it. And now they're moving towards, yes, electric buses. Why not? So anyway, we need to continue to invest in this system. I have a personal gripe that I've been fighting for years, which is I think we need more bus shelters.
That is our time.
And let's keep making that happen too. Thanks.
That concludes our District 36 New Mexico State Senate Candidate Forum. We want to thank our candidates, incumbent Democratic candidate Jeff Steinborn and Republican candidate David Tofsted. Thank you to our co-moderator, Julie Whiteco with the League of Women Voters of Southern New Mexico. A reminder, you can stay updated with local election coverage by visiting the KRWG News Election Center at our website, krwg.org. I'm Anthony Moreno. Thank you for joining us. Election Day is Tuesday, November 5th.